Hi there, I'm John of John's Carnivorous Plants. This is my indoor nursery, and today I'm going to be answering the question what to do when space is a problem. Now, this is an interesting topic because every grower, eventually, as you continue to collect and purchase more plants, you're going to run into the problem of I can't support my house plant addiction and keep shoving all these plants in. I only got so much space on the one shelf or one grow tent or my greenhouse or out in my garden, etc. And often you got to start, you know, weighing the pros and cons of, well, what do I do here? One option is if you have the space in your home, you can expand like I have here and eventually get yourself a whole room set up like what I got going on here of all kinds of various different racks and different plants. But even now, I am capped on space in this particular environment. If I put another rack right here, it's going to just make it so, yeah, filming is going to become a pain, and then it's also going to be hard to maneuver around the space itself. I would suggest learning from, like, not my mistake, but an example, I guess the best way to put it, in that you would want to plan, if you can, and you're starting out just now, what are you going to do in a few years to you know continue your hobby? So for some people it's, oh, I'm going to eventually get a bigger grow tent. For some people it's, I'm going to build a greenhouse. Some other people, oh, I'm never going to go beyond this small little setup I got here. That's good enough for me. And all of these are good answers. The other thing that I can suggest, though, from personal experience, is if you are running into a point where you have a bunch of very difficult to keep plants, don't stress yourself out. Go for the plants that you like, that don't cause you a lot of stress, that are very easy for you to maintain, because every plant does have different levels of care that they require. And if you start stacking up to where you have this whole setup like I do, you'll easily start spending, 10 to 20 hours a week, taking care of plants, which that's why I've turned this into a full-time job for myself. Now, most people don't have that time investment to be able to do, so I suggest go to a small setup that is conducive to you and your life. And there's a bunch of really easy to care for carnivorous plants like Utricularia. It's the reason why I keep so many of them, because they're very easy for me to take care of. All I got to do is divide them out whenever I need to propagate them, pollinate the flowers whenever I'm trying to do crosses and whatnot, and just otherwise, once a week I spray them down with Maxi, or just, every so often I'm refilling the water trays. It's not that much of maintenance versus with like Nepenthes, where I gotta, like, very individually feed all of them, either with like live food or with like an eyedropper, and like dropping in, very specific amounts of fertilizer to maintain them. It gets a little bit more difficult because as you get more and more pitcher plants, there's a lot more pitchers to maintain, and you got to start keeping up on top of it, of like, oh, this new one just opened, got to keep the feeding going, because as a plant gets bigger in size, it needs more and more food. Now, keeping that all in mind, you definitely got to weigh out how much time you want to spend personally taking care of plants. And the one suggestion I can give is, if you're finding stuff that is particularly difficult or time consuming for you and is not bringing you joy, I would highly suggest just letting it go and give it to a friend, give it, sell it online, etc. Because you you will have a lot more enjoyment and a lot less stress with the hobby if you find that level to where you can maintain things very comfortably. And that's actually where I was for a long time before I started the nursery. I only had two racks, and the two racks, like, it provided me just enough to where I didn't feel stressed out whenever I was working a full-time job, but also I had enough plants that I felt like, oh, my living room is kind of like a little bit of a jungle. And I got all these cool little things that I could show people when they come over and stuff like that. And not to mention, I enjoyed seeing the progress day after day of all the different species. Now, two racks might be a little too much for you. Maybe you want to do one rack. Maybe you don't even want to do a rack. Maybe you just want to have a small little grow panel and just a small little tray of plants that you're growing. All of that's acceptable. And it is okay to get to a point where you're like, man, I got too much stuff and want to, you know, downsize to where you're back to where you're comfortable. Because there's definitely a point that you'll look back on and you'll be like, okay, yeah, that's where I wanted to be. And I'm not here to tell you how to fill your space. It's just you do whatever you feel is most comfortable that is not providing you stress is the best way I can you know, guide people for long-term happiness in the hobby. It's how I maintained my, you know, personal enjoyment with these plants over the years. And I definitely felt like this was a worthwhile topic to address. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this. Please like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions. Maybe it'll get turned into a future video. If you enjoyed this, please take a look at my nursery. There's a link in the description. Buy a plant, help support the channel. If not, you can come just join my Discord and come talk plants. I appreciate hearing from everyone and seeing their plants. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the next one.